At the new Plainfield Backus Emergency Care Center, we're opening new doors to better health. More than just a 24/7 emergency room, the new center provides services you and your family need to get better, stay healthy, and be well. Choose wisely. Choose Backus.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure and honor as Mayor of the City of New London to welcome you all here today for the announcement of the National Coast Guard Museum in the City of New London. This museum will not only be a treasure for our city and our state, but it will be a national treasure for our entire country. This is a great day for the City of New London, the state of Connecticut, and especially for the United States Coast Guard. There are many people who have been a part of the process to even get us to this point, who have worked on this project for many years, and whose continued support will be integral to its success. We will hear shortly from some of the key speakers, but there are many, many individuals who have been a part of this process, and I would be remiss not to recognize as many of them as I can. Of course, I will not be able to recognize everyone who is here, but certainly everyone's support of this project is much appreciated. First, I would like to recognize our state senator from our district, Andre Stillman. Thank you very much. Other members of our legislature who are here are State Representative from the City of New London, Ernest Hewitt, and State Representative Alyssa Wright. The Commissioner of the State Department of DECB, Commissioner Smith, is here as well. Along with the Commissioner of the State Department of Transportation, Commissioner Rediker, is here. Military Affairs Liaison for the State of Connecticut, Bob Ross, is also here. We're also pleased to recognize the head of one of the national treasures that already exists in the City of New London, the Superintendent of the United States Coast Guard Academy, Admiral Sanders. And as everyone will see momentarily, this project would not be possible without the support of two private entities, property abutters to the site that has been selected. Their cooperation was essential to reach this announcement today, and their continued cooperation will be essential to see this project through to a successful conclusion. I'm very honored to recognize at this time, representing Union Station, Todd O'Donnell. Partner who could not be with us today, Barbara Timken, as well, and we thank them for their support. I would also recognize the members of the Ranowski family who represent Cross Sound Ferry, who are here with us today. Thank you so much for your support. We would also recognize former member of our state legislature, who is also a member of the National Museum Board, former Senator Kathy Cook. Would also recognize someone who was a stalwart supporter of this project during his terms in Congress, former Congressman Rob Simmons. As the site selection involves the use of city property, this will require the cooperation of all city public officials, and we're very honored to have strong support from members of our City Council. led by our City Council President, Michael Passero. Our councilors who are able to be in attendance with us today, Councilors Adam Spracacci and Marie McSperrin, and the Reverend Wade Heisler. We also meet today in one of our Science and Technology Magnet schools in the City of New London, our Science and Technology Magnet High School. We selected this site because not only is today's announcement significant for the location of the National Coast Guard Museum in New London, but all too often in the lead up to this announcement, this museum has been discussed in terms of its economic impact. Its economic impact cannot be understated, but at its base, this museum is an educational institution, and we are here today in a Science and Technology Magnet School selected by myself and Mr. Coleman, the President of the Museum Board, to highlight the fact that this will be a science and technology museum for our country. As we embark on this endeavor, we simultaneously are seeking to be the first all-magnet school district in the state of Connecticut, a true example under the strong leadership of our governor of how education reform can have real meaning and real possibility here in the City of New London. And I would like to thank the representatives of our school department who are here, our Board of Education President and former Mayor Peg Curtin, Superintendent of Schools Nicholas Fisher, and the principal of our Science and Technology Magnet High School, Lou Allen. Thank you all so much for assisting us today in putting this presentation together. Now, before we make our initial presentation, there are several individuals who the significance of their role in this process needs to be emphasized. Without their strong leadership and their strong support, this project could not be possible. The first individual that I'm going to introduce to all of you is someone who has been a stalwart supporter of New London on many fronts. And without his commitment of $20 million to this project, the access point for this museum would not be able to be built. This component of the project is an essential component in the project's success, and it is because of his leadership and his support that this National Coast Guard Museum will soon be a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to all of you the Governor of the State of Connecticut, Dan Malloy.
Talking to some of you who have been working on this great endeavor for many years, I have to tell you that I am so very happy that you stayed the course, that you continue to work on this project, and that we got to this day. I want to recognize the mayor's work. He went down to Washington. He arranged for the Admiral and I to meet on this issue. He pushed me to get my letter in on time, my $20 million letter. And I really think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. I mean, put it in other terms, there are a lot of cats that had to be herded to get this day done, and he's done a magnificent job in getting us to this point. To recognize the Admiral's commitment to Connecticut, to this project, to getting it done in a timely fashion. It's good to have a deadline, and he established a clear deadline, and I'm so very happy that he did. His leadership has been tremendous in bringing about this project. It's quite clear that the Admiral and his wife love Connecticut, and I can assure you we love you. Thank you very much for bringing this day about. To all of the people that have already been recognized, the state representatives and senators and council members and Board of Education members, thank you as well. This requires New London to do certain things, and the political leadership that's being demonstrated is truly appreciated. To my commissioners, the three of you get this done, okay? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Get it done in a timely fashion, as you're required to do all things in my administration. Particularly you, Rediker, on transportation. To our congressional delegation that has demonstrated its support repeatedly, thank you for being here. Thank you for the demonstration of support for this project. And any money you could lend or bring about would be greatly appreciated. I'm sure you'll be on some fundraising letters as well. I happen to love New London. Actually, I love this part of the state. I visit here frequently. I think the needs of this portion of the state have not received the level of attention from the executive branch of government that it deserved for a very, very long time. It's one of the reasons I travel here frequently. It's one of the reasons that we're looking to make investments. It's one of the reasons that we've designed investment policies to work with small businesses and large in the region. It's one of the reasons I was happy to make this $20 million commitment to this project. I see greatness in New London and Norwich and surrounding communities and, quite frankly, the entirety of this portion of the state. This is a good, strong investment in the future of a great community, which is on its way back, building again, as demonstrated by the commitment to education reform that's playing itself out here, as demonstrated by some early investments that I think have already been made by people who anticipated that this museum would come about. This is a good day for this portion of the state, and it's going to be an even better day when we cut the ribbon on the kind of place that will attract people on an international basis to come to New London, to see its great architecture, to understand its great history, to understand the great history of the Coast Guard and its predecessor services. This is fantastic, and to all of you who played any role at all or simply support this concept, thank you for that support. Thank you for that word. Let's get it going. When are we breaking ground? Come on, let's get going.
Thank you, Governor. And when the Governor says he loves New London, we in New London know he means it. Now, to introduce to you our next speaker, I must say that this project will also require very, very strong support from our federal legislative delegation. We will need to liaison with various federal entities to gain the necessary approvals, environmental, engineering, Amtrak, and others to move the project forward. Their support will be just as critical as any other actors in this to get the project done. And we are very fortunate to have two very strong advocates for this project and for the City of New London and the United States Coast Guard serving in the United States Senate. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the senior senator from the state of Connecticut, Dick Blumenthal.
I don't know why people laugh when I'm introducing the senior senator, but Admiral, I'll have to get some tips for you on commanding a certain respect. I am really tremendously honored to be here, and the Governor's spoken very eloquently and powerfully about the importance of this project. You know, this picture is really worth 1,000 words, and the picture of people, thousands, tens of thousands of people from all over the country coming to New London to celebrate the Coast Guard and a unique piece of American history, a unique service to our nation over hundreds of years, will be a jewel for Connecticut and the country. So this is really a wow day for Connecticut, all of Connecticut, not only New London and southeastern Connecticut, but a breakthrough banner day for our nation as well as Connecticut. I'm very fortunate. I asked to be on the Senate's Commerce, Science, and Technology Committee, and then I asked to be on the Oceans and Coast Guard Subcommittee of that committee. So, Admiral, I hope to be speaking to you more often than in the past, and to all of the Coast Guard, let me just say very, very sincerely, thank you for your service to our nation. You have a proud and extraordinary history of serving our nation in times of tremendous danger and historic importance. And that history will be documented in this museum with the sword that was used for the surrender to General MacArthur by the Japanese, to the Medal of Honor worn by a member of the Coast Guard for his heroic saving of a detachment of Marines, to countless other artifacts that remind us that we depend on the Coast Guard for really essential services in peace as well as in war. Now, I know that this project was almost lost at sea. And I want to thank all who are here today for rescuing it from various other potential locations, such as Battery Park in New York City. This one is vastly preferable. I know that we are not supposed to talk about parochial or state interest, but let me say that the coming together, as has been so adroitly and importantly done by the mayor, by the governor, by our state legislators, by all who are here today, is really a reflection on the importance that we attach to the Coast Guard of the United States. Thank you for your service, and thank you to all who made this day possible.
Thank you very much, Senator, and I am now pleased to introduce our junior senator, who has so often after his recent election been to New London that we are going to register you to vote here soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you Senator Chris Murphy.
I'm quickly learning that I will never ever speak before Dick Blumenthal. I'm very happy about that. What a day, what a big deal this is for the state, for this community, and what a tribute to the people in this room and to those that have worked so hard on this project. The association in the letter that's included in some people's packets refers to this process that's gone over the course of a decade plus as an odyssey. And it's an appropriate word. I have been part of only 3 months of that 10-year odyssey, and so I am here really to just express my gratitude for everything that the mayor, that the state legislative delegation, that Representative Courtney and Senator Blumenthal, and in particular Admiral Howe, has done to make this day possible. This is going to be transformational for this city and for the region. We don't know how many people will come to this beautiful, gleaming new museum, but we know the impact that they'll have on this economy and on the culture of this part of the state. And to me, it's such a beautiful way to marry together these two twin heritages of our state. Our military heritage and our heritage connected to the sea. Whether it was our contributions to the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, whether it was the fact that there wasn't a soldier in World War II that didn't have a piece of brass on him that wasn't made in Connecticut, this state has committed more to the history of the U.S. military than almost any other state in the nation. And of course, we know here in New London that Connecticut exists because of our connection to the water and our connection to the sea. And nowhere is that more evident than here in New London and in southeastern Connecticut, when you can visit the seaport and the subbase, where you can have a real understanding of what it means to be a city and a state connected to the sea. And here is the opportunity for people from all around the world to understand how important that twin heritage is to the state that we all love. We know we have work to do. We know there's still a major role to play for those of us who get the privilege of representing New London and the Coast Guard Academy in the United States Senate and the United States Congress. But this day just as much as all the days that led up to us inspire us to get this job done so that we can continue the work of honoring our heritage and transforming this community. Mayor, everyone here, congratulations.
Over the past year, it has been my pleasure to work with the president of the National Coast Guard Museum Board. This has been a difficult process, with him being based in New Orleans and us being based in New London, but the back and forth has been constructive and very productive, and without his strong leadership over very many years, today's announcement would not be possible. It's my honor to present to you the president of the National Coast Guard Museum, James Coleman.
Well, wow. What a grand day it is for us, and a long time coming. On behalf of myself and my fellow board members, we thank everybody previously who's been on the stand, and especially the political leaders of the state. It couldn't have been done without this strong leadership and push. And we've been at this a long time. We have two of our members of the board, both Admiral Fagel and Senator Cook, has started in 1997. And we began and actually created our Coast Guard Association 12 years ago. And I want to read our mission that we've been following. To establish, develop, foster, and perpetuate the National Coast Guard Museum, which will serve to promote historical knowledge of the U.S. Coast Guard, its predecessor services, to promote awareness, recognition, and pride in their role in the maritime heritage of the United States. So here, on the banks of the Thames River, we're going to build that National Coast Guard Museum. On a river that tells the story of America and the sea every day, recreational craft, cargo ships, high-speed ferries, tall ships, sophisticated submarines. This will be a landmark maritime museum which will honor the great stories and bravery of the men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard who served America through the revenue and the U.S. And the National Coast Guard Museum is going to be a national treasure. We've been inspired by the stories that need to be told, and we have a famed architect, Ernst Scotia, and his team, which you'll hear from, who have envisioned a signature building on the Thames. It will be a magnificent living museum with experiences in and around the site. The state-of-the-art displays, the interactive exhibits will be designed by Patrick Gallagher, a world-class museum designer who's here. He created the International Spy Museum in Washington, the D-Day Museum. He is doing the new United States Army National Museum in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and many, many, many others around the world. He's done over 100 projects in the museum field. And Patrick has been with us for the 12 years, and so is Ernst. He knows the story well. And the visitors will feel the thrill of search and rescue missions. Hear the wind blowing and brave coasties go out into the storms. Send rescue divers into icy seas or face unknown threats as they board smugglers' vessels. They will smell an angry ocean, feel the sting of the angry North Atlantic Sea, and come to admire again the sacrifices and nobility of past, present, and future Coast Guard. Visitors will learn about the role of the Coast Guard, technology used for missions and maritime service, environmental protection, and homeland security. We at the National Coast Guard Museum Association are grateful for the support of the New London community, as we have had. It's been hard for so many years for this project to come home. And thank you, Commandant Pat, through the personal engagement of your commitment, and a legacy, but was actually, you know, without your drive. And I love the idea. You at headquarters, we'd have a meeting, and you made very clear to everyone, there are roadblocks. They find a way around them. Don't find a way from to block anything. And this is what's happened. So on all sides, we've had this kind of support. And we appreciate the advocacy, support of the congressional and state legislatures who we've heard from. And thank you, Mayor Finuzio. Thank you for giving this final push to help us get the much anticipated ribbon cutting. And thank you, John and Adam Gronowski, for having Cross Sound Ferry be an integral part of this project with a new passenger terminal. This is going to, I guess, if you bring 500,000 passengers through every year, they're going to pass. They have two doors to go, one into your new terminal, and the other door is straight into the free museum. So you've given us a real start. I just asked from the New London Day. He said, well, how many visitors do you think you have? And I said, we'll start with 500,000. So, and thank you, Todd O'Donnell and Barbara Timken, for your participation in providing access to the museum and the new ferry terminal. The National Coast Guard Museum is certainly going to be, both internationally and nationally, a very, very important destination. Speaking of New Orleans, we've just seen with the D-Day Museum and the World War II Museum has brought people from all over the world, Europe, country coming in just to see that museum, which is spectacular. And that was the work of Patrick Gallagher, who's here. All I can say is, Semper Paratus, we are ready and eager to get this built. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a year ago in Washington, D.C., I had the pleasure to meet the individual whose true drive and determination to see this project to a successful conclusion has more than anyone made this day possible. The 24th Commandant of the United States Coast Guard will mark as his legacy not only the location of the National Coast Guard Museum in the City of New London, which will be a transformative act for our city, but it will also be a transformative act for the Coast Guard. When I met the Commandant a little over a year ago, and then when I met Admiral Stowes a little over a year ago, I told them both that one of the things that disturbed me as mayor of the city was that when cadets go to the Naval Academy, they say, I went to Annapolis. When cadets go to the Military Academy for the United States Army, they say, I went to West Point. It's because of your leadership, Commandant Pat, that one day cadets that go to the Coast Guard Academy will say, I went to New London. Thank you, Admiral, for your leadership. Thank you for believing in this project, and thank you for believing in the City of New London. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commandant of the United States Coast Guard, Admiral Robert Papp.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I feel a little bit like Walter Cronkite this morning. I know there's a few people in the room who probably remember what I'm talking about. I remember as a young man, my dad forced me to watch Walter Cronkite every night to get the news. And I think he was probably one of the most articulate storytellers in existence. Yet on the day that Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon, he sat there at his desk, and as he watched and listened to this happen, at a certain point he just took off his glasses and he said, in his most articulate fashion, wow. That's how I feel today, wow. And what I want to do up here this morning is respond to the two questions that I've received most as we've endeavored to get this project going. First question is, why a National Coast Guard Museum? And then the second one is, why New London? So let me respond to the first one by reading an email to you that I received recently, and this will explain why I believe there's a need for a Coast Guard museum. I met a seaman apprentice back a couple of years ago named Roy McKay, and I took a liking to him immediately. It was the first thing that caught my attention when I asked him where he was from. He says, "I'm from Canada." He was a Canadian citizen that was inspired to come to the United States because he wanted to serve in the United States Coast Guard. He wanted to be a rescue swimmer. He wanted to jump out of helicopters and save people. Now, I don't know why anybody wants to jump out of a perfectly good helicopter, but that's what he wanted to do. So I've maintained contact with him over the years, and I check in every once in a while to see how he's doing. So I checked in just about a week ago because I needed to get some information from him, and he responded, and I just want to read a portion of this. He said, "As you know, I wanted to go to rescue swimmer school, and that didn't work out. So I took a step back and looked at what else there was for me. Then I chose to be an aviation electronics technician. You see, Admiral, to be honest, it really didn't matter what I got to do in the Coast Guard. I just wanted to be in the Coast Guard. To me, this isn't a job, it's a lifestyle. I've made some of the best friends in the service, and I always tell people that I gained 40,000 brothers and sisters when I came in. I'm living the dream, Admiral. As you already know, this is by far the best service to be a part of. Take care, Admiral. I'll be here standing to watch. Semper Paratus." Roy McKay became a U.S. citizen, and he's serving at Air Station San Diego right now. Going out there and living the dream. But those 40,000 brothers and sisters he talked about deserve a monument. They deserve a museum. And those hundreds of thousands of Coast Guardsmen who have come before Roy McKay and others deserve a tangible, visible monument to their commitment, to their sacrifice, to their service. This museum will serve that role of honoring those brave young men and women who have continuously stepped forward, raised their hand, sworn to defend the Constitution of the United States, and then put on the uniform of the United States Coast Guard. They deserve it. That's why I want this museum. I also want this museum for Catherine Beasley. Where is she? Did she leave? There she is. Catherine Beasley has received an admission to the Coast Guard Academy for the class of 2017. So she's going to be an alumnus with me at some point in time, but we're already related because I'm a graduate of the Norwich Free Academy and she is a student at the Norwich Free Academy. Now this was not a prop, I didn't set this up, I happened to meet her while we were preparing this morning when we arrived here, but we need a museum for all the Catherine Beasleys out there as well, and to attract more Catherine Beasleys to come into this great service. That's why we need a museum. So let me respond to why New London. I had the great privilege just about a year ago to go to the National Archives in Washington, D.C. My staff surprised me. I didn't know this was coming. And when we went up to in the archives, the archivist, the top man, took me up to a vault. And in that vault, along with 4 other archivists, they had arrayed 222 years of documents related to the United States Coast Guard. And I'm not going to cover all of them because I could sit here and talk all morning about the wonderful treasure trove of information that I saw that day. Everything from the beginning of the service all the way through Deepwater Horizon, Hurricane Katrina, etc. And they find, the archivists love having me there because they find the United States Coast Guard to be much more fascinating than any of the other services because of the predecessor services and how this service was formed over the years. But the thing that I treasured the most, it was a great big package sitting on the table, covered with thick cardboard, and they put on white gloves, they opened up the cover, and there are these stacks of parchment sheets with beautiful calligraphy on them. And on the top of the first page, it said the Tariff Act of 1790. They flip to the back page, and they are signed into law on the 4th of August, 1790, George Washington. And then they moved into the middle of the bill, and they showed me a paragraph in there, and it said, the Secretary of the Treasury has authorized the construction of 10 cutters at a cost not to exceed $10,000. I can't get any shipyard to give me that deal. So once again, why New London? Well, because the fourth cutter to be built out of those 10 was built here in New London. The cutter Argus, built here in a shipyard in New London. I'm going to give this to our new Coast Guard history class at the Academy to do a research project. I want to find out where that shipyard was. So I don't know exactly where it was built in New London, but it served here for 13 years. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that if you walk down on Bank Street, stop at the Customs House, and if you look down the alley at that wharf that sits behind the Customs House, there's no doubt in my mind that the revenue cutter Argus moored up there as it went out and deployed and patrolled the waters off Connecticut and Rhode Island for those 13 years. It's a direct connection to the beginnings of our service in 1790 to New London. And of course, we've been here inextricably linked to New London ever since. The Coast Guard Academy itself moving here in 1910 to come ashore for the first time at Fort Trumbull and establish a shore-based school. And of course, moving up to its current location in 1932. And all the thousands and thousands of cadets and enlisted members and civilians and auxiliaries that have worked here in the city, come through the academy, and worked on projects over the years. We are inextricably linked to this city. And rather than say, why New London, I say, why not New London? That's the question to be asked. So I've had the great pleasure and opportunity, honor, and privilege to represent this country sailing around the world. I've lost track, literally, of how many countries I've been to. But I know on Eagle alone, when I was your captain for those 3 years, we visited 15 countries during those 3 years, and I visited a total of 35 overseas ports, and then many other ports around the United States. Every time I went into a port, I was amazed by the beauty of the waterfronts, things people have done with the natural resources they have that lie along the river or lie along the bay, making them focal points for their cities to bring tourists and people and celebrations to the waterfront. And as you do that, as you bring people back into the city to the waterfront, life springs from the waterfront back into the rest of the city. You need a focal point, you need something central to the city, and waterfront property is magnificent to be taken advantage of. I said the same thing back in 1999, the last time I got underway with Eagle. Admiral Doug Thiessen, who's here today, was with me at the pier, and we were preparing for OpSail 2000, and we all had a great deal of enthusiasm. We thought, this is it, this is the point, this is the turnaround for New London. This is what will make us great again. And I left with a speech and I said, why not New London? I talked about all the beautiful waterfronts I had seen throughout the world. And I said, why not New London? Well, we can't just go down to the waterfront when we have the waterfront festivals. We need to have something that's attracting people down to the waterfront all the time. And I believe this museum will do it. So it will serve that purpose of serving as a wonderful monument and teaching tool to all those people who have served in the Coast Guard. It will educate the public about our United States Coast Guard. And I believe it will serve as a magnet to bring people down to the waterfront and revitalize this city that we all love so much. So, why not New London? All we have to do is think big, we have to have focus, we have to have commitment. I'm committed to this, and this commitment will go beyond my service in the United States Coast Guard. This museum will be built, it will thrive, and we are going to restore this waterfront to its grandeur. And I want to thank the Connecticut delegation. I've got to thank the mayor. He's done a wonderful job. You know, I'm not a politician. He's been able to bring a lot of disparate parties together in order to get this kicked off. And I think he's done a great job of it. And I want to thank Mr. Jimmy Coleman and his dedication, his effort. He's had some ups and downs and course changes along the way. One thing I know how to do is steer a steady course, and we are going to do that. So, let me wrap up by making one more statement. I have a fictional character who I love. It's called Captain Jack Aubrey, Master and Commander. Russell Crowe played him in the movie. whenever faced with indomitable odds and challenges and disaster, whatever it might be, whenever everybody comes to him and tells him about problems, we can't do this, we can't do that, it's going to be impossible to do it, he says, well then, there's not a moment to lose. Ladies and gentlemen, there's not a moment to lose. All ahead full. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Papp. And now the moment that everyone is waiting for, the actual designs and the presentation of the site selection for this National Coast Guard Museum. I'm pleased to introduce our architects, Urs Gosha and Tony Santos, to do the presentation. And after the presentation of the museum designs, we have a special presentation, a little bit of a surprise for everyone before everyone leaves. But Urs Gosha and Tony Santos.
First, I want to make some quick introductions. I've been at this for a very long time, and I think if you haven't lived through it, nearly 11 years is a very, very, very long time. So we've done this again and again and again. We've done this on one site, then another site, then another site, but finally we have arrived at the place we really should have been in the first place. So first I want to introduce Tony Santos, who has been with this project right from the beginning, and we have a partnership that has done this again and again and again. And also, I think I should introduce the executive architects, and the firm is Payette Associates from Boston, and the partner in charge is Charles Clay, and he has with him two colleagues, Sarah Redding and Jeff Abrams. And then another veteran of this whole odyssey is Patrick Gallagher, and you'll hear from him after I finish speaking. He is the exhibit designer. So I just cannot express fully how glad I am to be here. We have come up to the altar many times, and I feel like we've been jilted again and again and again, but here we finally are, and now believe it. And after your impassioned words, Admiral, I believe we're on our way. I think when you design something like this, as designers, you have to have something in mind. I mean, what motivates you to look at a project in a certain way? So something kind of grabs you. And the three things we kept in mind throughout is what an extraordinary organization the Coast Guard is. And this museum needs to do three things. It needs to show respect for the past, and it needs to engage the present and look to the future. By respect for the past, Admiral, you mentioned 1790. It has an amazing past that is not well known. So clearly this museum serves to emphasize that. And I think very few people engaging the present know what the Coast Guard really does. It's sort of those nice guys that everybody likes, and they come and help you when you're in trouble. But the full range of services that are provided by the Coast Guard are not known. So this museum needs to portray what does the Coast Guard do now. And then it needs to look to the future. And I think, as the Mayor mentioned, this is going to be a high-tech museum, and it's appropriate that we unveil it here at the Science Technology Magnet High School. So it will be something that will engage future Coast Guard people. So when we did this, we really had in mind what would a 9-year-old really love. And the nice thing about focusing on the 9-year-old is that whatever a 9-year-old likes, I will like too. And also, what's nice, if a 9-year-old likes it, they'll want to come back again and again and again. So it's like, can we go again? Can we go again? So the kinds of things, what would attract a 9-year-old? So we were thinking that one of the things that would attract me, you mentioned your Coast Guard person who was interested in becoming a rescue swimmer. I think they're all nuts. They jump out of planes and force 10 winds and do things that a 10-year-old would think is even more amazing than I think it is. Imagine a place where you can stand on a platform and sit in the seat and see how long you can stand it before you get seasick. You can try to find out an LD, a bunch of little bags like in an airplane, just in case. Also imagine, and I'll show you where this is, I mean if you see this big prow, imagine having controls there that makes you think that you're the captain of a ship. And on a screen you'll see the whole building move till it's finally in place. And you'll probably wear a captain's hat and feel terrific for the next 3 months. Imagine being in a rescue boat. That's part of this exhibit. The ones that flip, do a 360. You'd be strapped in and do a 360. Wow. and so on. So really this museum is designed for 9 to 90, no I should correct that, 9 to 100. And it's a celebration of the men and women, past and present, that make up the Coast Guard and that have served our country so well. So let's start this journey this morning look at the site. Somewhere, somebody took my pointer, makes it, oh, there we go. You all know where the site is, so I don't have to explain where it is, but I think it is important to look at the site in more detail. Where else do you get a railroad station, a wonderful railroad station designed by H.H. Richardson? You have a rail line, you have a bus station, you have a parking area here, you have the possibility of having the Eagle right on the town pier. You're looking down State Street, and what do you see? You see the Eagle. It's quite an extraordinary spot. So if you could figure out a spot to put a museum, this is it. And there's no other town where you get all these things happening at the same place and you put a museum right in the middle of it. So that's 100% location, if there is such a thing. And I think the other interesting thing you see here is you have this promenade that's been restored recently and built, and this will continue right along the waterfront. So you can just keep going, and it'll be attractive all the way through. At the moment, it kind of stops here, but the idea is to make this continuous. Along here, you see a 20-foot setback that will allow emergency vehicles to go through. So, all of you know that the view in this direction is absolutely breathtaking. I mean, you're looking down the Thames River and you see towards the ocean. In this direction, you see towards the city of New London. In this direction, you see all the activities of the ferry terminal, and it is the kind of site any architect would dream of. So that takes me to this shot, and I think in plan view you can really see that this is a very big complex, but it's really 3 different projects. One project is the museum, which we'll visit in a minute. The other project is this project, which is a bridge across the railroad, and the third piece is the ferry terminal here. So let's keep in mind that these are really 3 separate projects. Let me talk quickly about the terminal building. The terminal building is a building that will accommodate up to 500 people. That is a staging area for the high-speed catamarans. and it has an accessible deck. It has a covered area below. It lets people wait in comfort to board the catamaran. This project is pedestrian crossing. So from here, you enter, you get across the railroad tracks. It provides handicap access to get across the tracks. At the moment, if a train is in the station, you can't go to the other side. So if you catch a 5 o'clock train and the train's already there, well, you're out of luck. You've got to wait for the next one. I think the relationship to the existing station is very good, so that people really will go from the station directly there, go across and enter the museum, instead of going through one of the crossings. One is up here and the other one is here, and go all the way around. That doesn't really work. So I'm delighted to see that the governor has committed the funds to build that railroad crossing. The museum consists, I'm now going to talk just about the museum, of 3 parts. This part is this magnificent, it celebrates this magnificent view. It's a mainly glass building. On this side is a solid block that contains all the functions that need controlled light, and in the middle of it you have an amazing atrium. And I will show you what that looks like. So we have the north wing enclosed, the south wing with a magnificent view, and in between an atrium. So here I am, that's me, and here's the 9-year-old, and he brought a friend. And we are at the entry of the museum, and we're looking through, and we see Groton in the distance, and we look up, and it's this magnificent entry that with museum functions on this side, and you can see the next level, the top level, and from there you can see down. Now I'm grabbing my 9-year-old, or 9-year-olds, and we're going to take you through the museum. Here's the entry. We were just looking in this direction and saw this amazing view. As we enter, here's the entry. There's a shop and cafe here, and of course those 2 kids immediately want to grab something to eat, but I tell them you have to wait till you've seen the museum. Here's an area for special exhibitions. So this would be an exhibition on the impact of algae, for instance. What's that problem with algae across the world, and how do we put algae to positive use? This would be an introduction to the museum as a whole, or something like that. Then I will grab those 2 kids, and we're going to go up the stairs. Here are the stairs. We're walking up, and on the right-hand side we have an incredible view in that direction, and this is full of exhibits that portray the Coast Guard in all its glory. Also on this floor, we're arriving here, is a lecture theatre, and that accommodates 120 people, and there's a lecture going on that talks about the role of the Coast Guard in drug interdiction. Of course, that's fascinating to those kids. Then this shows you, at the same level, the passage across and how that works. You go across the railroad tracks, and you end up with an entry to the museum here, and this is the ferry terminal, and it goes all the way through and ends up giving you access to all the ferries. Now we're going up one more level. Here we go, we're coming up the stairs, and this is an enormous amount of exhibit space, about 16,000 square feet. All of this is controlled lighting, and this is an open space with incredible views of the sound. And then we finally end up on the top floor, and there is a big terrace, but it's crowded full of people because the Coast Guard just had a ceremony in this multi-purpose room, and they have a reception outside. So 300 people can fit in this multi-purpose room, and out here we can have hundreds of people milling around, having drinks and watching the view. And right there, I'm going to go through the crowd with those two kids and end up here, and here I can pretend we have this ship full of people that we try to dock. So that's somewhere here. This shows you a section through the building, and it's a cut through the atrium. Here is the bridge going across. The bridge has 3 elevators, one on this side, one at the other side of the tracks, passenger tracks, and then another one that's incorporated in the building. And what you see here is the ground level. We walked up the steps, and then we saw a museum exhibition here, and we walked up gradually through this building till we ended up at the top with the most spectacular view that you can imagine. This really shows you what we intended to do. It is important, I think, when you have a project like this to leave a permanent impression. And what inspired us to do this is the idea that this is the prow of a ship. So it projects out over the water. It cantilevers out over the water, but it allows you to walk by in a continuous waterfront park. And finally, I want to remind you that there are 3 different sponsors for this museum. The bridge is sponsored by the City of New London. They're the driving force behind that. Of course, the museum and the driving force behind that is Jimmy Coleman. And then we have the ferry terminal, which is the ferry company represented by the Renowskis. So there are 3 projects, and what we're able to do is to have them act in concert. So each piece adds to the other. So it's not 3 disparate competing projects. What's interesting is they can happen at different points in time. They don't have to be built at once, but when it's all finished, it will all work as one big complex. And I think this is an appropriate way to celebrate the accomplishments of the Coast Guard and the brave men and women that have served. So the building is telling a story, an important story, but it's like the outside cover of a book. It attracts you. You want to see more of it. When finally you get inside the building, and there's the real story. And the real storyteller is going to be Patrick Gallagher, and he is the exhibit designer that will guide you through what you can experience in this building. So it is a great pleasure that I introduce my colleague, Pat Gallagher.
Thank you, Urs. You've had the great pleasure of getting some previews and some concepts from Urs on the building, and I have probably what I believe is the most important job in the room, and that's the responsibility to tell one of the stories of American history that has been untold, but a story that's so deeply entwined with who we are as Americans, and the chance to really get people to understand that the story of the Coast Guard is a story of American history. And it's not just about those who served in the past and the connections to the major conflicts that this country's been involved in, and all the great work of the men and women of the Coast Guard throughout time, but this is a living story. This is a story that unfolds every day. This is a story about people who are doing things all around the world, men and women who are involved in activities that are so critical to who we are as a nation, and so critical to our maritime history and to the future of the waterways, both here in the United States and around the world. So I have a deep responsibility to tell that story. It'll be done with collections. The Coast Guard has an amazing collection of artifacts. You heard today about the collections at the National Archives, foundation of documents that will really begin to engage the connections to who we are as Americans throughout time and how the Coast Guard has been so deeply entwined in that story. But it's also a story about modern technology. It's a story about people. So while artifacts are wonderful, the best artifacts that I have to work with are the stories of individuals who've committed their lives to participating in the Coast Guard and making that, as you heard this morning, through that wonderful email, something of an identity for who they are forever. So my artifacts are the storytellers, and we'll have a chance to bring them to life throughout history. And when visitors come to this museum, they'll be able to meet and interact with young cadets every day who will be a part of the museum, who will help to be tour guides and docents and make this story come to life. And what a great position for a museum, because what is a modern museum about? Interactives. Urs told you about some of the things we've talked about, some of the great interactives that we can have both inside the building, but we're on the waterfront. Every weekend when someone comes down here, there'll be hands-on activities, a chance for them to see and experience how young cadets learn, how they train, and learn a deep respect of the relationship to the water. So I've got a great opportunity in front of me with the creation of this museum. And for this community, the chance that every weekend when they come down, every day when they come to the museum, there'll be new programs, new education. This state's commitment to education through this school will come out through STEM education in the museum. STEM will be an important foundation in the infrastructure of storytelling, so that when schools come here, they'll see through the story of the Coast Guard the connections to science and technology and history. They'll not just learn, they'll enjoy, and they'll come back. They'll come back to see changing exhibitions. They'll come back to do programs, both indoors and outdoors. They'll come back to hear lectures. They'll come back for book signings. They'll come back because it's a great place to be. It's a living museum because it's a museum about people. I look forward to sharing the new designs as they begin to unfold, and I want to be there with you the day we open so that you can be as excited as we are about one of the greatest stories in American history and one of the greatest stories of today, and that's the story of the U.S. Coast Guard. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this, and we look forward to celebrating in a few years the new National Museum of the Coast Guard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bristol, and thank you, Mr. Gallagher. We are almost at the end of our program, and because this wasn't completely run in Coast Guard fashion, we're a little over our time limit. And as a result, one of our speakers had to leave, but I would be remiss not to recognize that a profoundly strong supporter of this project and someone whose support is going to be critical to its success is our Congressman Joe Courtney. Role in making today possible, and we thank him for his continued support. But lastly, before we close today's announcement, we have one small surprise. The theme in economic development in the state of Connecticut is, as some of you may know, Connecticut is still revolutionary. The city of New London has a proud past going back to the Revolutionary War. The United States Coast Guard may have been founded in 1790, but during the Revolution, many merchant seamen, including our own Nathaniel Shaw, did their best with private ships outfitted for the service of the United States to protect our merchant ports, ports like the city of New London. And on June 14, 1777, the Continental Congress adopted a resolution calling for the creation of a national flag. This flag was to have 13 alternating stripes of red and white, a blue quadrant with 13 white stars upon it. But the design did not call for the stars to be arranged in any particular fashion. So many of these original flags had different designs in how the 13 stars were arranged. Most people remember the Betsy Ross flag, but many other 13-star American flags had different designs. These items are extremely, extremely rare. There may be less than 10 still in existence in the United States. Shortly after becoming mayor, I found that there was already a national treasure in existence in the United States. And I would ask at this time, Admiral Papp, if you would please come forward. And I would ask Ed Baker from the New London County Historical Society to please come forward as well. For presentation, Admiral, in the National Coast Guard Museum, the board of the New London County Historical Society has voted, and the city will privately fundraise money to have as an exhibit in the National Coast Guard Museum one of the last surviving American 13-star Revolutionary War flags. This will also serve as a connection between the Coast Guard Museum and the rich history that already exists in New London. Because when visitors come to the National Coast Guard Museum, we want them to also go out into the city of New London to see the Shaw Mansion, to see the Custom House Maritime Museum, to see the Lyman Allen Art Museum, to see the Nathan Hale Schoolhouse. All of these sites will be critical to show that Connecticut and New London indeed still are revolutionary, and this national treasure will belong in the national treasure that we've announced today. Admiral.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have our first exhibit. Now we only need the building to put it in. Thank you. It's tremendously generous of you, and we look forward to our work together.
And I thank the New London County Historical Association for this vote and for the presentation of this. This is going to be an excellent exhibit for the museum. I thank you all for coming today. I would invite the media to please speak directly to any of the architects or parties who are still here. And we will be absolutely 100% full steam ahead, and we will look forward to being there when we cut the ribbon. Thank you all so much for coming today.
It was a bit to keep it a secret from me. And this was actually
I might